Sometimes life happens.
We see you.
And you feel all alone.
We feel you.
With nowhere to go.
We got you.
So many questions unanswered.
We understand. Yeah.
And you feel like you can't.
But God
wrestle with your own thoughts. This is for you.
Yeah.
When life happens and it makes you feel like you're off the beat, 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 off the beat. Real authentic conversations. All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Offbeat Podcast. I'm your host, Jorge Ambriz, and today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm right here in the background. I might pop up here and there to, come on and share. But today we're gonna do a little bit different episode. We actually came across this amazing sermon by Pastor Robert Madu from Social Dallas. We've been listening to him for some time now. He's an amazing preacher, an amazing pastor. We love his style of communication, the way he communicates to people, the practicality of his messages. That's my type of message. I love practical messages. I believe there are parts of the Bible that are super just history, story, and there's a lot that we can still pull from. But for the most part, I believe the Bible is filled with words, with scriptures, with stories that we can apply to our life, right? Mm-hmm. And so I love how he communicates, and he has an awesome message that we listen to. It's called "Do You Love You?" And I have the ladies, my lovely co-hosts, my wife. Let's give it up for Jeanette.
Hi, everybody.
Where's the applause?
Oh, you're not giving me applause? Oh, what?
That's pretty cool.
Yay, Jeanette.
Oh, you're fired, babe.
And then we got Darlene in the house again. Round of applause for Darlene. All right.
Okay. He's just having fun now, huh?
Yeah. Another thing what I love about him, he's just so funny.
Yeah.
He makes things so funny and just so engaging. So I think that's like a really cool thing about him too.
Yeah. No, yeah. So it's we're gonna react to a few clips. We're not gonna get through the whole sermon. It's not that long of a sermon, but by the time we get through everything and react to everything, we'll probably be here for all day talking about. But the subject of "Do You Love You?" It's we've been last week we released or last week or 2 weeks ago we released a podcast with George and his fiance Sandra. They talked about their story, talked a little bit about some dating tips, some advice. They talked about their journey. We talked a little bit about different things when it comes to relationships. And one of the biggest things, though, man, that really stood out is just the title itself. Do you love you? And it's a question that, right? Do we love ourselves?
Mm-hmm. It's crazy that because what you're saying that Sandra and when George were on here, they were actually saying a lot of things about that.
Right.
That they were really, focusing on themselves, really like loving on themselves. Mm-hmm. Like Sandra, she said she dated herself, and George, he really worked on himself, like before kind of going into dating or relationship wise, So this, I think a lot of people sometimes I think we all believe that we love ourselves, but sometimes in reality, a lot of our toxic traits probably come from because we probably don't.
Right.
In certain areas of our lives,
Yeah. Want to add anything, Darlene?
Yeah, I could agree. I think in this moment, like my moment of singleness, I am in a journey of self-love right now and loving myself and loving my own company. And it's odd to me. And like I knew George around that time when he was spending his time loving himself and spending time with his own company. So it's kind of cool, like reflecting back after watching the episode, also reflecting back when he was in that period of his life and then seeing him where he's at now. It's just like, okay, so he took those months spending time on his own and look how much it benefited him. He showed up differently in this relationship that he is in now. and is able to accept love because he learned to love himself first. So it's beautiful to see like the outcome of that. And like, I think this sermon is a good sermon for us to speak upon, especially because a lot of us don't know how to love ourselves prior to entering a relationship.
Right.
Good. That's good. Really good. So let's go ahead and get into the first clip. Darlene was able to, she was kind of handed the task of, can you find the timestamps? Because there's a lot of good points, but we're going to start pretty much in the beginning. And again, it's Do You Love You? Sermon is Do You Love You? And it's, let me put that right there on the screen so we can get started. Do You Love You? Pastor Robert Madu. I think I'm saying it right. Madu. My dude. Robert Madu.
Not my dude.
My dude.
My dude.
Social Dallas, putting it down, man. And so, I was like,
I know.
I was like, what's the noise?
My daughter's in the background.
I'm telling you, these things are really sensitive. All right, so we're going to go ahead and push play on the first timestamp right here. And let's see what he has to say.
Don't try this at home, but maybe the next time somebody says, I love you, a follow-up question should be, do you love you? Because if you don't love you, it's going to be impossible for you to love, because you will love your neighbor as you love yourself. If you don't like you, how you don't like me? If you are critical and judgmental of you, maybe that's why you were on my page talking sideways. You're critical and judgmental of me. If you can't forgive you, maybe that's why you're so bitter and can't forgive anybody else.
Oh my God.
Shots fired.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm getting shot in the heart.
Burn.
Man. Yeah, let's pause right there. Okay. Man. And again, it's derived from the scripture of God's command, like, hey, love your neighbor, love the Lord God with all your mind, with all your soul, with all your heart, right? But then he says, and love your neighbor as you would love yourself.
Yeah.
And man, that is always, I don't want to say, it's a standard. It's the standard, right? It's the standard of godly living. It's the standard of relationships where it's like, God is like, basically, you got to love your neighbor as you love yourself. And I love what he starts breaking down. It's like, no wonder why we struggle sometimes to love our neighbor. You know, our neighbor could be our spouse. Our neighbor could be our dating partner. Our neighbor could be literally a neighbor, you know, a coworker, a friendship, you know, and I know that that's one of the things that has been so difficult. I know for me, like where, how do I love these people that are close to me when I didn't realize for a long time how much I did not love myself in the right way, you know? And I know that sometimes talking about this subject can be like, it's like a slippery slope of like what's ego, right? What's ego, what's egocentric, like what's selfish, but what's self-love, you know? And where he pauses at, it's like, no, he's talking about loving people, loving your neighbor, loving those close to you, and how it's impossible sometimes to love those people that are close to you if you can't love yourself. Because, you know, we really are an overflow of what's inside of us. You know, whatever is inside of us will overflow. So if anger if we're filled with anger, anger is going to overflow. Yeah. You know, if we're filled with sadness, sadness is going to overflow. If we're filled with hurt, hurt is going to overflow. Bitterness, it's going to overflow. Resentfulness, it's going to overflow. And there's only so much that we can hide until eventually, like, we start to bleed on others, right? Yeah. You know, it's like the famous saying, hurt people. You know, so it's so true. Like, it's a great starter of like, yeah, do you, because we could say, I love you. We could say, I love the people close to us. But then how do we demonstrate that if we don't really love ourselves?
I felt like that was like a shot to my heart, especially when you were doing shots fired, because I did spend a long time not loving myself. I haven't forgiven myself for the actions I did in my relationship. And I wasn't loving myself. I wasn't realizing my worth. I didn't feel like I was valuable. So because of that, I was not accepting love when I was receiving love. It was weird to me because I feel like I didn't learn to love myself. And now that I'm in this like self-love journey, it's like foreign to me. I'm like, how do I do that? How do I love myself when I'm not in a relationship with someone that's loving me? Like, but at the same time, that's an eye opener to me because if I need someone to be with me so that I can feel love, that's not real love. I think I need to learn to love my own company, which is what I've been doing lately, which is going on solo dates, buying myself some flowers like Miley Cyrus. And, and yeah, I can't, it's eye-opening to me. I can't show up and completely love someone and love my neighbor if I'm not loving myself. I can't be selfless if I am being selfish and asking for them to pour into me, but I don't know how to pour into myself. I don't know how to love myself. I don't know how to forgive myself, show myself some grace. How can I return that to someone else?
Yeah.
And I think it's funny. I think when I'm thinking about this, I'm like, I feel like sometimes I'm like the opposite, I guess you can say. Sometimes I feel like, I think the way I grew up and the way I've learned, like through my relationship with God, is actually trying to be more like him always. You know, that's always been a mindset of mine, you know, like how can I be more like him, you know, when it comes down to treating others. And I know like for me, like I've done a shared part where maybe I didn't treat people correctly or kindly, you know, and that was always my fault. So I was always like, okay, how can I always better that, you know? So I've always been like the optimistic person, I think, in my life. So when it comes down with people, when it comes to other people, like I've always like expressed grace, expressed love, you know, because I think I've always received it.
Yeah.
You know, I've always seen it, you know, and maybe at times I didn't, in which growing up, I know I've experienced where people didn't like me and they said mean things to me or they treated me wrong. But I think because I just always felt God's love more in my life, and he just always like gave me that assurance, gave me that peace in my heart, that I am loved and that he loves me. And I think like always having that mindset, it made me like, you know, truly believe in myself. And I think because my parents kind of like just always believed in me too and loved me, you know, in the way that they did, you know, I think I was able to always give that back.
Yeah. That's what I admire about you. And I noticed that from previous conversations, it's like you give people a chance and you like, how do you say, selflessly like pour into them too. Like even with our own conversations, when I talk to you about my own situations, like I see the love there, I see the concern. It's like, I admire that about you.
Oh,
and I wish, I feel like I am like that. Like I'm a therapist, so I do have that in me, but then there's times when I don't have that in me. And sometimes I forget to give grace. But I grew up in a chaotic household where we were walking in eggshells. So now that I'm older and where I don't have to walk in eggshells with my family anymore, it's still kind of foreign to me. I'm still like re-parenting myself to accept love from first my family and accept love from God. Sometimes that feels foreign to me, which is, it's a fact. People who experience trauma with their worldly father have a harder time accepting love from the Heavenly Father.
Right.
So it's like trying to learn that. But when I do pray, when I do stop and think, and I remind myself that God's love is really all the love I need at this point, it's just like, it changes your mindset, your perspective on things as well. Right. But sometimes it's like a constant reminder.
Yeah, I think because you know, like the conversation that we have that we were having, like in regards, because I feel that times, you know, I'll express to my husband like, man, how come this relationship is not working out? Like whether if it's like a friendship or something like that I felt, or even with my family, that even in our transition stages of life, you know, and I'm just like, but again, I always, Like, I'm always an optimistic person. My optimism, I think my hope that God just like, it's just instilled within me. And sometimes it's hard to like, to think like, no, like, you know, like, cause sometimes I want to be that way, you know, like I want to stay mad. I want to stay like angry at the people, you know, I want to like throw them like, or just push them to the side. But I don't know. I'm just not, God has not built me that way, you know? And I think he just kind of gave me a soft heart, you know, that at the end of the day, after praying about it, after reading his word about it, or after listening to a message, you know, or at church when we're listening to, I always think about those things that, you know, about people, you know, about my marriage, you know, if he's done something to me, you know, I'm always, my kids, like if they've treated me in a certain way and I felt hurt about it, you know, like I just always go back to those moments and I'm just like, he just convicts me. Yeah. You know, I think that's just it. Like he convicts me. Yeah. You know, I'm just like, okay, like I have to continue to be like you. Like if I really want to be have that Christ-like mentality, I gotta be like Jesus. Yeah. And that's something that even Pastor Aaron, our pastor, he kind of even preached about the other 2 weeks ago, right? Yeah. You know, and like you know, like you have to put the old self away, you know, and put on the new and be more like him. Yeah. And what is God? What is Jesus? He is forgiving. He is graceful. He is merciful. He is a loving God. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think that's I love that we have different perspectives. You know, we have, you know, Jeanette's perspective that, you know, she grew up a certain way. So there was a confidence, you know, that was instilled within her. And then having Christ as a center, you know, it really does make a difference. You know, I don't even know how much we can overemphasize that because that is the goal. Like if as a believer, as Christians, is the goal should always be to how can I become more Christ-like? Right. You know, how can I reflect more of God's love to other people? And the only way, you know, the other day somebody said this and it's true. It's like the only way we are going to be more like Christ is when we know more about Christ, when we read his word, when we are, you know, learning more about him and also applying, you know, his principles, his values, his ways when we do go through situations, you know, because I think I think we're going to get to one in a little bit, so I won't get too deep into it. But I think a lot of times is certain experiences that we go through in life, they will shape us for the better or for the bitter, you know, and sadly, a lot of times I know I've chosen the bitter way. Yeah. You know, I know I have a lot of times because sometimes it feels better to feel something than nothing. Because sometimes, you know, being Christ-like is, you know, let's look at Christ's life. You know, Christ's life was a very selfless life. You know, even when he walked amongst us, he was a very selfless person, you know, and he came for one mission. He knew what he was here to do. He knew that humanity was depending, even though whether we knew it or accepted it or not, he knew what he was here to do for us, you know. And regardless if people were going to believe or not believe, you know, his love was still going to be extended. And I think sometimes, you know, that feeling that we want to hold on to, it's kind of like, it makes us feel like at least we have some sort of control. Yeah. You know, at least like, okay, they did this to me, but you know what? They won't take this feeling away from me. Yeah. In a way, you know, but at the end of the day, it's like, we're only hurting ourselves because at the end of the day, what it's doing is that it's teaching us how to handle situations in a way. We're conditioning ourselves in a way we're reactive, you know what I mean, to what happens in our life. Instead of like, you know, okay, God, what is the lesson that I'm to learn from this? How am I to love differently through this? You know, through this situation, you know, am I going to be a better reflection of your love towards others? Or am I going to allow this to hurt me, to bitter me, to put me down? And in return, without us knowing, it hardens our heart. Yeah. And then when people do try to get close to us, you know, that's where we have like, we just react, or it's hard for us to build relationships. It's hard for us to be open with new friendships. It's hard to make new friends because, we're always just thinking about, man, but this happened, years ago, or this happened last week, or this happened last year.
Well, like you talking about that, like I know for us, like throughout our almost 10 years of marriage, like there's always like these seasons where it's like we felt like we couldn't have like loyal, good like friendships. Yeah. Like, like we were always in that season of like, we kind of like, it was always just us and the family, our family, of course, and then family and stuff like that. But like friendships, it was always so hard. But I think it was because the way like, our story, it's a very, how do you say, unorthodox?
Very unorthodox.
That's the word. I'm like unorthodox. Us getting together, how we, our how we started off our relationship, and stuff. But at the end of the day, God blessed it, and we got married, and stuff like that. And our story was then blessed. But it was so unorthodox, and it hurt people that I think it just. I think it did something within us. I know for sure it did something within me, that because people were talking about us and weren't really forgiving, and just, the grace, it was there, but then it wasn't there. So it was just kind of weird. And I think it just closed us up. It closed him up, I know for sure. But it even like closed me up to know like, who can we trust?
Yeah.
Who can we really trust, like, to be friends with? Who can we really be open with? And I think that led us to even, like, why we struggled in our marriage, Like, it led us to struggle where finally when we got therapy, that's where we were able at least to begin to open up and just begin to heal our inner selves.
And and I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think that's where the big difference is. Like, because people can think, oh, you love yourself, that's selfish. But in reality, like, not knowing how to love yourself is actually more damaging. You know what I mean? Because being selfish or being egocentric is a complete different thing than actually learning to love ourselves. Because if we would have learned how to truly love ourselves, then we would have like had that confidence in God first, but then also that confidence in ourselves to be able to say, hey, you know what? Okay, like we accept accountability for what we've done. Like now it's time to move forward. It's time to move forward with our heads held high, not because we're prideful, not because we're cocky, but because we know who we are in Christ. Right. And I think that's one of it's a great point, because I think that in life, sometimes things will happen that if we're not careful in knowing how to love ourselves, those things can chip away at our confidence.
Right. You know what? I'm gonna comment on that real fast. So you guys know a little bit about like my relationship. He didn't do anything wrong. I will say that. But like, I think with me not loving myself, I was allowing myself to be in positions where I can get hurt, allowing myself, to be in positions where I can get hurt and be disappointed and be let down. And it wasn't even him doing anything. It was just me constantly not really knowing my worth, not loving myself enough to be like, all right now it's not working out. I need to drop it and leave it alone. Instead, it was like constant, like, checking in, constantly trying to see him, constantly just trying to talk to him. And it was kind of like my justification was like, I just want to show him that I love him. But in the middle of me trying to show him I love him, I was not loving myself enough to be like, this guy doesn't want to see me right now. This guy doesn't want a relationship with me right now. So I was like lowering my self-love, lowering my confidence. And it got to the point where I didn't even know my worth anymore. And now I'm like slowly building myself back up, but it's going to have to take cutting ties, like you guys were saying before the episode, like cutting complete ties so that I can learn to love myself all over again.
Yeah. And if we look at the example of Christ, you know what I mean? Like that's exactly what Christ does with us. You know, like if we really look and study God's nature and Christ's nature is, like the story of the prodigal son, it's one of the most perfect examples of God's love, the love of the Father, where, hey, the prodigal son wanted his inheritance and he took it and then he squandered it. And when he squandered it, he hit rock bottom. And after hitting rock bottom, that's when he ran back to the Father. He's like, man, even a servant at my Father's house has it better than what I have it now. Because he understood something, and I think he understood that his self-worth was his identity was a lot more important than what he had or what he could have. And I think a lot of times, like, again, like kind of sticking to that. Let me finish that point because I can get sidetracked. But sticking to the point of like the example of Christ is that he teaches us over and over that yes, God loves us, but he loves us enough to let us go. And we're all a testimony of that. Like I always talk about my story and I'm like, man, it took me so long to finally say, okay, God, I surrender. And there's many stories out there of like us too, like your story, like, where, you're looking for solutions and answers in all these other places until we finally hit the place where like, okay, God, I get the message. I got the memo. Like I'm not building anything on my own. Like if anything, like I'm ruining more and more, like I'm digging a hole more and more in my own life. But that's the beautiful thing about God is that he continues to just love us. He continues to be patient with us. He continues to let us go when we want to let go. He continues to do all these things and show us that. But he never lowers himself to anything else. Like he even when he walked the earth, like it's like he would unapologetically speak his messages. He would unapologetically speak to the crowds and to the multitudes. But then when, it wasn't up, he wasn't forcing anything down them. Like he wasn't like if they followed, they followed. If they didn't follow, then they didn't follow. And I think that speaks so much into having that self-love, knowing who we are in God. Like Christ knew who he was. He had that confidence. He knew who he was. He knew that he was the Son of God and he knew what his mission was. And I think we can learn so much from that and knowing who we are, like who are we? And when we know who we are and we know who we are in Christ, then we're going to be able to like you said, we don't have to downgrade ourselves. We don't have to belittle ourselves. We don't have to lower certain standards in our life because we know who we are. And those that are going to love us, as long as we love the way Christ loves, whether that turns people off or on, however the case may be, at the end of the day, it's not our job to force anyone to try to love us or to try to like us or anything like that. Because then, that's when we can we can hurt ourselves more than build each other up.
Yeah, I agree. Before we go to the next one, can I have her turn it down?
Oh.
I can hear it. Melanie, can you turn it down, please? It's loud, girl.
We got fourth podcaster right here with us. All right, so let's go ahead and go to the next one. This next one is going to be, let's go to 11:12, right? 11:12. This one is one that I actually picked. I really liked it. It was 11:12. Here it is. We'll start it from right there. So,
how do you love after? How do you love after the heartbreak? How do you love after the hurt? How do you love after the abuse? How do you love after the molestation? How do you love after the affair? How do you love after the second divorce? How do you love after being ghosted? How do you love after you have been disappointed over and over and over again? Often the challenge of love is not how do I love, it's how do I love after I've been through some stuff, because now my perspective has been jaded on what love really is.
I'm jaded right now. I'm trying not to be jaded.
I think I can speak into this.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I've experienced a lot of the things that he's saying. So, after hurt, after pain, Again, it goes back to your mindset, how you really want to, I think, like, see, what do you want in your life? It's like, think about it, like, when you're hurt, when you're in pain, and you've experienced maybe some of the things that he pointed out, think about it, like, do you want to be sad? Do you want to be bitter? Do you want to be resentful to the person or to the people who has treated you this way? If you do, then you're going to go throughout your life miserable. That's just straight, honest. You're gonna go throughout your life just miserable.
Yeah.
God does not want that for you. God didn't send his son to go through life miserable. And I think I've learned that when I give things to God, when I pray, when I, cry to him of what I'm feeling, of my hurt, of the confusion, of not understanding things, like when you're in that pain, when I'm able to just vent out everything and say, and God tell me, like, through his word or through counsel, that's how I've gotten the help, is through prayer and by reading his word. When his word speaks to me, he reminds me, he convicts me, like, that he loves me no matter what, and when people have surrounded me in those moments when I needed it the most, it allowed me to say, you know what? I'm not going to let that hurt or that person win me over. Yeah. Like, I'm better than that, because we are better than that, Yeah. We are, God has created us for a purpose. We are his masterpiece, and
I like that. Sorry, I just want to kind of interject. I like that he said we're better than that, instead of we're better than them. Because I think sometimes, sometimes that's the attitude that doesn't allow us to heal properly, because we think we're in competition with someone else, or we think we're in competition with them, or it's kind of like a defense mechanism that we build up. And
that's not love either. That's not moving in love.
Right.
Because I had this conversation with one of my friends yesterday. Like, the easy route would be like, screw him. He's not anything.
Right.
But at the same time, I don't feel that way.
Right.
If I was moving out of love, it's more like, I love him. He's got to figure himself out apart from me. But then it's also like, I know better than to allow him to continue to make me feel sad, to where I'm not showing up for my daughter. I'm not present at work, or I'm not doing like the cleaning that I should be doing, that, like, I'm better than that. So when he said that, I was starting to tear up, because I was like, yeah, I am better than that. Like, I can't be letting that affect my life in general, because he was an aspect of my life. He wasn't my whole life.
Yeah.
And I think when we have that mindset, that's where I think God allows us to have grace upon ourselves first, and come to realization it's not our fault. Because that's where was my realization. Like, yes, I had fault in moments of our relationship in our marriage, but at the same time, like, I'm not gonna hold on to that fault. Yeah, I'm not gonna blame myself, because if I continue to blame myself and keep at fault, then I'm going to continue to walk in this way where I'm not going to be able to, I don't know, like, I wasn't going to give the grace that I was able to give grace to my husband.
Yeah.
Right.
I wasn't, maybe I wasn't, I'm not going to forgive him or even just say right now, like, in the transition that we've been, that I know I've been hurt in some ways with friendships and stuff like that. Like, I'm not going to be able to forgive them if I were to keep holding them accountable, like, it's just, it's why keep doing that? Yeah. When you can heal and you can forgive, and okay, you're accountable for your own, what you've done. Like, you admit what you did, like you see what you did. Okay, I did do this. Okay, I apologize though. Because I would like go through like, okay, I did that. They said I did that, but I apologize. I spoke to them. I sat down with them. I sat down with my husband. I apologized for it. And I told them that I'm going to do better. I told them I'm going to do better. And I think I have done better. Now, it's up to the other person and their mindset and how they're going to react, how they're going to move forward.
Yeah.
And that's up to them. You know, like my husband, it took him a long time to still forgive me. Sorry. Like, not like me, but like.
No, it's true though. No, but it's true though. And see, like and I try to.
Sorry,
no, it's okay because like honestly, like, you know, we've talked about it. I even talked to you know, I had sent her a text yesterday about it. Like, you know, that's one of the things that it's really hard to do, to be vulnerable. You know, it's one of the hardest things to do, but it's a real thing, you know, and I don't do it because I'm like, yeah, look at me. Like, you know, I want to throw a pity party and I want people to see how I throw a pity party and I want people to feel sorry for me. Like, that's the last thing. And I'm sure people probably think that, but it's okay. Like, cause I don't do it for that reason.
Yeah.
I do it for the purpose of, I want to help people, you know, and I know that there's people out there that might be going through something similar, that might be struggling. Like, how do you react, you know, after a heartbreak? You know, how do you react after somebody hurts you? How do you react after somebody rejects you? How do you love after, you know, like he mentioned, people that have been through abuse, people that have been through molestation? You know, and a lot of times we'll even get to a little clip after that, but you know, I'm so huge on understanding people's story because their story tells a lot about them. It's easy to point the finger and say, man, you know what, why are they like that? You know, and I know a lot of people have done that with me, you know, I'm sure, you know, and I accept it. But again, it's kind of going back to what you're saying. Like, I could either, you know, take a stance of like, man, you know what, I'm going to be better than them. Or I can take the stance of, no, I'm going to be better than that. You know, not that I'm in a competition, because at the end of the day, we're in a competition with ourselves, you know, and being able to love ourselves and then being able to love others is one of the most rewarding things. It's one of the most freeing things, you know, that we can do for ourselves and in our relationship with Christ, you know, because, yeah, how can we love God but then hate our neighbor?
Yeah.
You know, it's impossible to say that we love God, but then we hate the people that we're trying to reach. You know, I'm a big believer. Yeah, we can judge character. We can judge fruits. We can, you know, we have that right to do it. You know, if we want to associate with people, great. If we don't want to associate with people, that's also our right. You know, we don't have to all belong in the same group. We don't all have to. But I do believe that we can all respect each other and we can all love each other, you know, and the only way we're going to love each other is by understanding, like, man, like my wife said, we have a choice in that moment of pain, in that moment of hurt, is we can choose to heal, we can choose to move forward from this, or we can drown in that sorrow.
Yeah.
You know, we can drown in that bitterness. We can allow this situation to harden us. And for me, that's been the most hardest thing, you know, is letting go. You know, I was talking to a friend the other day. I was like, man, I feel that as I've gotten older, like it's harder for me to adapt to things, you know, like emotionally, you know, because I'm like, I was, you know, we're talking and I was telling him, man, I mean, like, I was like, man, even my whole life has just been weird. Like, I've been able to be on my own. I've lived in Mexico. I've been here. Like, I've gone through rehab programs on my own. Like, I was out of my house by 18, like non-voluntarily, you know, like it was just like all kinds of things that have happened in my life. And I've been able to adapt, you know, and I've been able to like push through these things. And it's like, man, now that I'm in my 30s, that has been one of the biggest battles, because I feel like now it's like, where do I transition to? Because as we get older, our transitions, they don't become, you know, as big as maybe as when we were in our teens, you know, or as when we were in our kids. Like, our transitions are now like, hey, you got little ones. If you're a parent, right, you got little ones. So now it's like, where are you going to transition to? Like, you know, you can't just transition from one place to another with your entire family. Like, you got to learn how to live life and confront life, you know what I mean? And confront the situations that we go through and be able to now adapt to how is this making you feel? And how are you reacting to how that makes you feel? You know, because now we're dealing with emotions. You know, it's not so much like a physical transition. It's now an emotional transition. So if somebody hurts us, how do we transition from that?
Yeah.
How do we like, you know, it's like, where do we go? There's nowhere to go. Like, we can't just uproot and leave sometimes. Sometimes that relationship is going to be with that person right next to us, like our spouse. So it's like, we're like, that's sometimes like what trips me out, like in our marriage. It's like when we do get into it or something, or when we do like have like a disagreement, it's like, where do you go?
You can't leave.
you know what I mean? Like,
but that's not going to help.
Exactly. It's not going to help. So it's like, so you're confronted. And so it's like, where it's like before, like I would, you know, as a teenager, you do something dumb or whatever, and then you just walk away from it.
Yeah.
And then you just, you know, life goes on. But now as an adult, as a family man, as a family woman, or, you know, couple, whatever, it's like, now, okay, what do I do?
Yeah.
I think it's learning just how to, you have to, I think at this stage of life, I think when you have children, when you like, you have a child, and when you're in a relationship too, like, and you're in marriage or whatever, like you have to be okay with adjustments. Something that I think I was listening to also, Stephen Furtick.
Yeah.
He was speaking with his son, and they were kind of like talking to him about like how do you like adjust, you know? And he was saying something like that kind of like stood out to me, because as we're parents right now, we're trying to like learn how to like also like sorry. Like also like kind of like what he was saying. Sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought because you don't know where he went. I lost focus right now.
Okay.
Okay, what was I saying? Great.
It's okay.
I think like okay, where was I going with this? The adjustment like of our kids, like through our kids, and because that's where their milestones.
Yeah.
I think learning with them and adjusting with them is gonna help us to, that's where we're gonna be able to learn to emotionally, physically, mentally, like, I don't know if that's even makes sense. Like, I'm trying to like figure out what I'm like trying, my point in all this, like, I don't know, it just stood out to me. I should have wrote it down maybe. I was actually going to send it to him, like, you know, because, but the things that he was saying, it does kind of like align, because it's like, you know, how do we change, or how do we adjust to the changes, right? Yeah. Like, how do we adjust to the...
Oh, you're talking about the message that he was like with his son? Yeah. He was talking with his son. Yeah, he was talking about like a note. Is it the part where he's talking about like the note? Where he's like, a bad note, like a bad note doesn't make it a bad follow-up or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. Oh, did you listen to it?
I think it was a clip, right?
No, well, it's because I was listening to the whole thing.
Okay.
I had listened to the whole thing. So there's something where, that's what I'm saying. Like, I can't remember exactly, but I like what he said. Like, through you, through him, like through his son, but through his, like, in general, his children, like, I'm learning to adjust through them,
yeah.
You know, because it's like, yeah, like now as an adult, it's like, you know, like what he was saying, like you're so used to like doing things on your own, making the decisions, or even when they're little, like, you know, you have to make the decisions for them, you know? So, but now as they're older and they're going through life and their milestones, like we now as parents, as adults, like that's kind of like how we learn to adjust with them, you know, because they're the ones, like our kids right now, they're teaching us a lot of things, like our patience, you know, how much even how we love them. They're teaching us how to love. Sometimes like
even how to forgive.
How to forgive.
You know, like how to forget, because like kind of going to that point, like where he's like, how do you How do you love after you feel pain and stuff like that? And like sometimes like it trips me out how like my son Ezra, like I'm very like, I don't want to say very hard, but I am hard. Like I'm pretty hard on my kids. You know what I mean? I try to be graceful and everything, but I'm a big believer in discipline too, you know? And so with him, like it amazes me sometimes how I can talk to him and confront him about something, but then like 2-3 seconds later, like he talks to me like nothing.
My daughter too. And sometimes I do ask my daughter for forgiveness too. Like when I do like, because when I'm tired, I'm very a little bit more like less patient, you know?
Exactly.
And when like in the middle of like around 8 p.m. it's kind of like, girl, you need to relax. So if she's asking me to go play, I'm just like, not right now. So it's like those times where I do like, I am a little bit less patient. I do like, I guess, raise my voice. Like I do calm down and I'm just like, it's not your fault. Like, Melanie, do you forgive me? And she's like, yeah. She's like, but when you yell at me, it just makes me cry more.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know my kids are like, I'm not even yelling at them, but I think because I'm getting frustrated, so they know I'm getting frustrated. Like my son Judah, he'll be like, "Don't yell at me."
Yeah.
I'm not yelling, but
it's so cool to see like that's healthy.
Yeah.
And a lot of us, a lot of times didn't know what healthy was. Like we didn't know what it was to be like, hey, that hurt me.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's one of the things of like learning how to move on from that, how to keep loving even after you're hurt, because it's like, you know, kids can teach us so much, you know what I mean, about that, because for many years, many of us, I know me included, we've hidden our hurt. Like we've learned to to kind of put it in the back burner, you know, to kind of store it away, and we kind of just leave it there and we kind of just move on. But we've never really learned how to process what we felt at that moment. Like when the heartbreak, like what really did go on in that heartbreak?
Yeah.
Like what emotions did you feel? Like what did it do to you? What did it do to your self-confidence? What did it do to you as a person? What did it do to your perspective? What did it do to how you view yourself? You know, like so many things. And we never really process those things. We kind of just store them away. And then we're like, okay, you know, and that's why like even a lot of people that have gone through like abuse, like molestation and things like that, like there's stories after stories of them, you know, for years they compartmentalize it. They put it away. They put it in the back burner. You know, maybe they did bring it up to family, and then maybe the family just kind of, you know, dismissed it or something. And then they talk about how now as parents, those type of the emotions start to come back, you know, like the distrust, the trust issues, the hurt, the pain, the, you know, the self-worth. Like, are they, you know, they start to think like, are they enough for their children? Are they protecting their children properly? And they can start to impose like some of these emotions to their children, you know, without them knowing. And, you know, I've heard so many stories like that, you know, through social media and through people that I know of like, man, that it's so hard for them to. And why? Because those emotions that they went through, they were never processed correctly.
I have a client that I saw this Friday. I was trying to let her know, she's 16. I was like, you know, kind of trying to have her take advantage of receiving services now as a teenager. I was like, because when you become intimate, when you're older with somebody, when you have your own kids, believe it or not, it's going to trigger you if you don't address the issues now.
100%.
And she's like, no, because I'm pretty like good at like letting things go, whatever, you know, like, and I was just like, I said the same thing too. You know, like I was a little bit more resistant, or not resistant. Isn't
like you're like resilient.
I was more resilient at the time, but it hit me like a truck after I had my daughter, and even like with my last relationship, I didn't really notice that I still had that stuff to work on. And I think that's what the next clip is about, is like trauma, and we'll talk about it then.
No, 100%. So how do we love? How do we love after the hurt? And let's go to the next one. The next one is going to be on is it 12:16? Yeah, 12:16. Kind of ties in a little bit to this one. Too far. Okay, let's start from right there.
Despite why you gotta be careful who you turn up your nose and go, I can't believe they behaved in that manner. Be careful when you rush to quick judgments about the behavior of certain people, because how do you know people were broken before you met them? And sometimes the best question you can ask, I found, is not why did you do that, but I've learned to ask the question, what is your story? I need to know your story, because often there is a brokenness behind that behavior. You've been through some stuff, and although trauma does not excuse behavior, how do you know it does explain behavior?
Yeah.
Boom.
I used that same phrase with my client on Friday, and that was before you even sent me that. No, I think, did you send me on Friday? You sent it to me on Friday.
I think I sent it to you guys in the group. I forgot when.
It was Friday.
I think it was a Friday.
It was Friday
it was
because
before my session.
It was after when we were coming back from SeaWorld. I mean, not SeaWorld,
Yeah, we're on our way, I think, to
aquarium.
SeaWorld.
So you had sent me
aquarium.
that. You had sent me that, and I said the same phrase to her. Like trauma doesn't excuse behavior, but it explains it.
Right.
And I want to give like so much grace to my ex because he saw that hurt in me. He saw it had nothing to do with him, and he gave me that grace and that room to grow, to learn. But and I appreciate it. And it also was eye-opening to me to see that I needed therapy, because even though he was showing me the grace, giving me the room to grow, showing me the love, it's not on him to fix me. I had to go to therapy, and I'm still in therapy now. And I'm slowly learning how my inner child and that period where I was hurt is why I react the way I react now as a 30-year-old.
Yeah.
So it's like once I address the trauma, the hurt, I could literally change the way I act now if I put myself in that position.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I just love this because this is, we talk a lot about this with my wife, like even just in general of how important it is to understand people, and that's why the best community, the best way of building community is in-person community, online, like even what we do here with Instagram, with YouTube, it's great. Like we do it, and our hopes and our prayers is to help people. But at the end of the day, it's never going to match like the one-on-ones. Yeah. It's never going to match the personal conversations that people have. And I'm always going to push for this, like that. We need people in our life, that are going to be able and willing to hear our story out. Mm-hmm. Because like the Bible even says, like, confess your sins to one another so that you may be healed. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, so healing comes from the confession part of confessing to one another. It doesn't forgive us, right? Mm-hmm. The only one who can forgive us is Christ. Yeah. He's the only one who can forgive our sins. But when it comes to healing, internal healing, we have to be willing to share our experiences with people. We have to be willing, whether it be with a therapist, whether it be with a church community, whether it be with one mentor, two mentors, whoever we can find and we can confide in, we have to be willing, because the thing is, again, we can go in life like, we can go through life justifying our behavior and never understanding why. Yeah. Like we can and that's where we go into a victim mentality, where it's like, I'm the victim. This is what happened to me. This is why I do what I do. This is why. It's like, yes, I get it. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I always kind of relate it to something so simple and applicable, which is like, it's like, let's say you got a money problem, you got a money problem. You like to spend money. You know what I mean? And maybe you grew up like with everything given to you, right? Mm-hmm. Like you had access to everything, and now you're an adult, but now you're on your own. You get your own paycheck, you work your own job, mom and dad has cut that off. Like you're on your own pretty much. But you now have a choice, like to live the way you lived when you were with your parents, or to live the way you choose to live now that you're on your own. And a lot of times, like people, man, like they just like they spend money. They'll spend money. They'll get their check, and as soon as they get their check, it's gone. Yeah. Like one day to another, it's gone. And then Monday through Friday, like they're just like scratching for change. Mm-hmm. Like so they got a bad administration problem. They got a bad money problem. Yeah. And they could say, man, but it's because that's all I've known. It's like, okay, yeah, like I get it. Like your behavior is the way it is because of that. But now what are you going to do to change it?
A lot of people try to justify their behavior with their trauma. And it's like, okay, so now what? What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do to change it? And I think I never used my trauma as an excuse of like, I went through this, so I'm allowed to act this way. It's never been like an excuse for me. It's always been like, okay, I know this part of me. Like, what am I going to do to change it? It was just hard to do it without therapy. Yeah. It was hard for me to do it on my own. And it was hard for me to do it while being in a relationship where, again, he never did anything wrong. Right. But it was like just being in that relationship was constantly triggering me. So like to heal, you might have to like isolate a little bit. Right. And just like, if you struggle with relationships, you might not want to date for a minute so that you could heal prior to the relationship. And then just have like a period of being on your own.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. And like so many stories come to my mind, when it comes to relating all this, to learning, how to be Christ-like, and, Christ teaches us so much, and there's like one story that really pops out to me is about, the crippled man. There's a story about a crippled man in the Bible who he was by the pool of Bethsaida, and he was just there, like in the porch, he was he would just hang out there. And the Bible says that every year an angel would come down, and would turn the waters. And it was kind of like a once a year thing where like whoever could get to the pool, would be healed. And so this man, was there. The Bible says, I think the Bible explained that he was there. He was in that condition for about 37, 38 years. Mm-hmm. And so he was in this condition. And what I really love about this story is that the way Christ approached it. And the way Christ approached it was like, he asked the man, he's like, do you want to be healed? Do you want to be healed? Instead of just healing the person, or instead of just like, touching the man and healing him, which he would have been more than capable of doing. But instead he approaches him and says, do you want to be healed? And I love it because when the questions are asked, the real, when we sit down and desire to actually want to understand a person, it almost automatically opens them up to feed their own answers. Yeah. And that's exactly what happened. Like Christ, like, do you want to get well? And right away, what started to come out was all his entire belief system started to come out. And he said, he's like, of course I want to be well, but there's no one that can carry me, to this pool, so, and every time I try to, somebody beats me to it. Mm-hmm. So he was answering the wrong question. Christ was saying, hey, do you want to be well?
He just wanted a simple yes. Yeah.
And not so much that. It was, I believe that the purpose of that was for that, because it shows our humanity. Mm-hmm. Of course we want to be well. Right. Of course we want to be healed. Of course we want to have healthy relationships. Of course we want to learn to love. But a lot of times we're so filled with our own justifications. We're so filled with our own excuses. But that's what's beautiful about talking, is that there's no way of working through those things if we don't understand what's really going on inside of us. Right. So, and a lot of times, like, people will take that like, oh yeah, see, I knew that. They say they want to change, but they're just full of excuses. Right? How many times have we heard that? Like those individuals they want to change. Like they say they want to change, but they don't. Well, no, it's because it's work getting through all the traumas that they've gone through. I mean, imagine this man, he was crippled for 37, 38 years. In 37, that's a lifetime of this man being in a condition. And so when we come across people, we have to understand, if we come across somebody our own age, I'm 37 years old. So I can relate so much. So imagine this man, and I meet someone that's my age. I have to automatically assume that, man, this person for the 37 years of their life, they have, who knows what they have gone through. So if I see a certain behavior, a certain action in their life, it would be easy for me to say, man, that's just crazy. Like, you know what? I'm going to stay away from this. I'm going to stay away from that person. Like, they're cuckoo, they're this, they're that. Or I can, find out and ask like, hey, what is going on? What is happening? And try to find out why they are the way that they are. Why do they think the way that they think? Why are they in the condition that they're in? Why have they been conditioned for so many years after year? And here they are. Yes, they have this condition, but what happened along the way?
Yeah.
What happened to them along the way?
Yeah.
So
that's a good point. I think, with the clients that I've been meeting with, a lot of them have like defiant behavior, and it's like, yeah, they tell, like on the referrals, they show that all their behavior that makes them defiant, but then just like they're not defiant because for the heck of it.
Right.
So when I look into their history and their abuse, that explains the defiant behavior. So how are you going to expect their behavior to improve when they haven't really addressed the trauma yet?
Exactly.
So that's what I've been keeping in mind with my clients.
Yeah. And that's what's beautiful about Jesus, man. Jesus, he doesn't just desire, to point or address the issue.
Yeah.
Like he points and addresses the issue, but his desire is like, he's going to walk you through.
Yeah. I think like with my healing journey, God's been telling me, and we talked about it in our last episode on letting go when we want to hold on. It's like God's been telling me for a while. Like he always tells me for a while what I should do, what should my next move should be. And it's always been, nah, I'm gonna no, like I want to do it my way. Like I want to no, like this doesn't feel right.
Yeah, that's not God's voice.
I want the answers right now. I want it right now. I want to fast forward time. You're telling me to wait. I'm saying right now, and it's been biting me in the butt.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes we do gotta like really listen to that voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And stop acting and stop being so stubborn in our own ways.
Yeah. Because once that man, going back to the story in the Bible, like once the man, like he got out whatever was in his system, his excuses, his victim mentality, everything that was holding him back, everything that he thought was holding him back. And then finally, he's like, but do you want to get well?
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing is that Jesus is always there with open arms. And that's the beautiful thing is like, he'll still listen to our excuses.
Yeah.
He will still listen to our justifications. He'll still listen to our reasons why, but yet he'll still love us through the healing. And this man was able to finally receive his healing after 38 years, and I love that story so much because it's one of the only healings recorded where he asks. It's almost like I said, it's so purposefully written where I just feel like it's somebody in today's age is going to be able to relate. It's like, of course, God, I want to be better.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
I can relate right now. I can relate.
Yeah. Like, because, of course, God, I want to,
Well, because it's hard, we're human, we have our sinful nature, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard to believe sometimes that we can be instantly, let's say, healed. Because in honesty, we're sometimes not instantly healed. It's the process.
Right.
And I think the process is what scares a lot of people, I think the process is the hard part, it's the having to do the work.
100%.
And I think, because I know for my husband, like that's something that was something like, like, shots fired. No, I think it's just because
it's true though.
It's because
cool.
I think for me, like I was just always so graceful with him. Like, I mean, of course, like it would make me mad, frustrated, like where it's like, dude, I'm giving you grace upon grace, like chances upon chances, and you're still acting like this, or you're still doing this, or you're still believing this about yourself, you know? And it's like, no, that's not who you are. That's not what you're meant to be, or that's not who you think you are. Like, that is not you. That's not what God thinks of you, Yeah. And I think, like, and we sometimes still have those conversations, to this day. So the process, like, but he did the process, like he did the work. And the thing is that he, even till this day, like he's still doing the work. I'm still doing the work, you know, because I know, like, to myself, like, I'm not perfect, you know, and I need to be forgiving myself, like, you know, for myself, you know, and heal myself of what those traumas brought to me in those times, you know. And I think when the story too reminds me of the real life story that even Pastor Aaron was talking about. Was it this Sunday or last Sunday, about the girl that he experienced with?
Last Sunday.
Was it last Sunday?
The missionary.
Yeah, the missionary girl. Like, this missionary girl, she went on a mission with them, but she was like complaining the whole time. He said, like, you know, and he was just like kind of like fed up with all her complaints, you know, till one day, like, he sat down with her, like, and kind of like to see. He let her just. Yeah, like, he let her just talk. She wanted to talk to him, I believe, you know. And then he was just like, man, like, I think he was about to tell her, like, you know, you just got to go, you know, because her complaining was just, she was just, you know, being like putting everybody down, like, in a way, in that,
like a negative Nancy.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so, but in that moment, you know, he just let her speak. Yeah. He just let her rant. He just let her vent until she herself, an hour after, as he said, she just like
started to break down.
Yeah, break down. You know, like, oh man, I'm the one. It's me, not them. Not, you know, like, again, like, it's because we put fault on people. Yeah, you know, we blame. Yeah. We don't take the responsibility.
And it's true, and it's like, and that's where healing happens. It's just that I think sometimes nobody ever allows us, or nobody ever validates. That's one of the things that I learned through therapy, that I really didn't understand that. I had heard the term before, but I never really understood, where it's like nobody has ever validated what you feel. Yeah. And I remember the first time my therapist told me that, my counselor, it's like, man, like, I want to first, I told her like a story of mine when I was a kid. And, you know, she asked me, I forgot what the question was. I shared, and afterwards, she was like, you know what? I first and foremost want to just validate what you just said right now. I want to acknowledge that what you just said right now and the way it made you feel, like, I want to acknowledge that. And that was the very first time that I was like, oh, like, wow, like, because I was so used to justifying or even excusing myself, like, no, but you know what, like, this happened, but it must have happened, you know, for a reason, or it must have happened because I was this way, or it must have happened because I was a bad kid or something, you know what I mean? And so I would always find a way, like, no, you know what, there was a reason why. And sometimes, like, we just need people to allow us to just speak, to just be open, to just, you know, share whatever it is that needs to be shared, so that then, you know what, like, sometimes the healing is going to be in that. Yeah. Sometimes the start of their healing could be in that. Sometimes they're going to figure out the answer themselves by just opening up.
Right. Yeah. Right. I've been very blessed to have friends, and even my dad, just listen to me. You guys too, just listen to me, like, while I'm feeling hurt, and like allowing me to speak, because sometimes I do just got to say it out loud. And I'm kind of like already thinking of the answer, but you guys so happen to like give me the solution too at the same time, like giving me the answer while I'm searching for an answer. But my dad the other day, he was like, at this point, he's like, I already told you like what's going to be best for you. And he's like, but now I know at this point, you just want to talk. You just want to talk out loud. And he's like, and I'm always going to be here to listen. If you want to come, you want to talk about it, I'm going to be here for you. And I'm going to listen. And that's true. You know, sometimes people just need to say it out loud. And then even my therapist is like, you know, if you got to write it down, write it down. I was like, I'm not a writing down kind of person. I want to talk, but maybe writing down will help too.
Yeah, writing down, or even doing voice memos. I do voice memos.
Or even like what I told you, like you texted me after. He's like, I hope you're feeling better, you know, because, you know, I was able to open up with you a little bit, you know, how I was feeling. And I'm like, you know what, like after our conversation and just like mentally, like, you know, emotionally, like I do feel better. Yeah. You know, like I just
saying it out loud.
Yeah. I just needed a place where I'm not feeling judged or I'm not feeling a certain way, you know, or, you know, or thinking like, you know, wrong for thinking that, you know, and because you didn't do that with me, like I was able to like feel like, because it was in my mind for so long, you know, it was in my mind and my heart, and it was kind of like taking space in a way, you know, and me being able to do that, and then you checking up on me, and that was really nice of you too, like that you actually you checked up on me through that text, you know, and I'm just like, oh, like, no, you know what, like after that, like I actually felt better, you know, and just at peace with it, you know.
What I have learned, and I'll give credit where it's due with my ex, like he was the first person that made it feel like no feelings, it was valid. Whatever feelings you're feeling, it's valid. And I think anyone that doesn't validate how you're feeling, whether like you don't have to agree. I didn't have to agree with how you were feeling about the situation.
Right.
I didn't have to. You were feeling that way. So even if I did agree with your situation, by the way, but even if I don't agree with how someone's feeling, they're feeling some sort of way.
Right.
It's not my place to invalidate that. I can't tell them they're wrong for feeling that way. They're feeling some sort of way. I might not have the solution. I might not have the answer that they like, but I can validate that what they're feeling is validated.
Right.
Yeah. No, good point. So we have to be better. We have to be better. And that's why I think we can only do so much in the local level, you know, and as far as like in our communities, around the people, around our coworkers, you know, take the time. We have to take the time to get to know people, get to understand. We don't have to be part of their group. You know, we don't have to become best friends with people, you know, but we do have to, especially as believers in Christ. Like, I think we have to be better at understanding, you know, why people are the way that they are, why people believe in what they believe. It's like, you know, I always go back to the Apostle Paul, what he said, and he said it best. He's like, man, I sowed the seed, Apollos watered it, you know what, but God is the one that gives the growth. And I love that statement. I love that scripture, because that's exactly how, as Christians, we should live. It's like, man, you know what, like, I'm just here to sow a seed. I'm just here to water the seed. I'm just here to nurture it. But at the end of the day, God is the one that's going to give the growth. Like, God is the one that's going to convince people. You know, it's too many times, like, we forget how we came to Christ. You know, God always reminds me. He's like, you know, sometimes when I feel like, man, like, why can't this person, like, why can't they just understand, or why can't they get it, or why can't they change their mentality or something? And God will always remind me, he's like, hey, it took time for you. You know, like, remember, you didn't come to me right away.
Yeah.
So stop expecting that on people.
That's good.
You know, stop expecting that on people. And I think that us, like, you know, we want everyone to be on board with what we believe and with everything. But our job is never that. Like, our job is just to sow the seed. Our job is just to water it, to nurture it, to take care of it, to follow up with it. But at the end of the day, it's God who's going to bring the growth. It's God who's going to bring people to him. Yeah. It's God who's going to save them. It's God who's going to redeem them. It's God who's going to love on them. It's God who's going to be there when we can't be there for them. You know, so we have to remember that we're only we are only
a tool,
a vessel, a tool, you know, of God, you know. And at the end of the day, like, we have to just, you know, love on people, love on them with the same love that we received. And if they choose to think a certain way, if they choose to live a certain way, it's not our job to, we can't force anyone to change.
Yeah.
All we can do is live in the best way we can, be the best examples that we can, love on people in the best way that we can, while all at the same time understanding that, man, you know, we got to keep loving God, loving ourselves, and then loving others. Because we can't love ourselves if we don't love God, and we can't love others if we don't love ourselves.
Right.
So the next clip is, you said 1920.
I forgot what that one was.
Let's see. Let's hear. Ooh, where's the mouse? Did it die? It died. Okay. I need a new mouse. Things been dying really quick. 1920. There it is. All right, let's start it from right there to get. some context behind
You
it.
don't love you. It is impossible for you to love somebody else. Ladies and gentlemen, when are we going to understand that healthy relationships are built with two healthy individuals? Many relationship problems are actually just individual issues that we never worked on in the first place. And I got a newsflash. Nobody is coming to save you. Nobody can complete you. You got to get whole by yourself and say, God, help me, love me, so I can actually be a blessing and not a burden to somebody else. There is no human.
Be a blessing, not a burden. Have I been a burden? Babe? No, just kidding.
I was a burden.
Shoulder the responsibility of trying to fulfill everything that you need. You got to find that in you.
Yeah.
Love this. Love this. Who wants to comment on this first?
I'm telling you, I do beat myself up a lot with how I was in my relationship. And I'm finally starting to get to the place where I am forgiving myself for it. But I was a burden. I'll admit that. Yes, I was, helpful in general, like nurturing to him and his son, nurturing just in general. But I was such a burden. And I knew because I didn't do the healing, the inner work within myself to be able to show up in a healthy way. And I'm just like, when I heard that part, I was like, I felt pretty like shameful a little bit.
Yeah. I think for me, I can always say this story. I think I've already said it like a lot of times. Well, it's not a story, but like about us. Like when, when he was going through his moments of just, his chaos, I guess, in a way, his own chaos, and he would kind of like whatever he was feeling, like he would kind of bring it on me, and he would just like giving me the cold shoulder or whatever it was, just not really talking, I've shared it the other time, that, I had to then work on myself, because how was I going to be a blessing if I'm going to be angry, if I'm going to be bitter at him, or again, like in my relationships, like always, like this is kind of like, this is always my mentality, like how am I going to be a blessing to people, or how am I going to really treat people if I'm bitter, if I'm mad, if I'm angry at them, like I don't want to feel angry at people. Like I don't like that feeling, because I don't like the feeling when people feel like, I don't like when he's angry at me.
Yeah.
I don't. When he's mad at me, like I know it. Yeah. When he is, I think those that are married and we've been married for so long, like we know when they're not themselves.
Yeah.
We know when there's something wrong.
Yeah.
And
that's the brokenness. That's the brokenness kind of talking back to that. Like it's,
Well, there's I think there's a lot of things that needs to be learned, like communication. How do you communicate what you're feeling? Because I think I never really received that in the relationship, never knew what he was feeling, even if I asked. So it's like maybe a part of him was broken too.
Right. Yeah.
And I think like when we, I think I wanted to say like your mindset of like wanting to be a blessing instead of a burden, and kind of asking within yourself, like, what can I do to do better? Like, instead of like, what can I do to change him? Like, what can I do to like make him not like, I don't know.
Well, because I was doing that.
Yeah.
In the beginning, like I was doing like, okay, how can I help him? Yeah. What can I do? I would try to talk with him. We would try to have conversations. I would push him to have conversations, and yes, sometimes it would work, but it just wasn't working the whole time.
Yeah.
It can only go so far, because again, it was him that had to do the work in him. I couldn't change him, So when I finally like talked with someone, when I was talking to our mentors at that time, she just kind of like told me like, well, like you gotta, you've done what you can, pretty much. Like you've done what you can, to help him, and you're still gonna do it, like because that's just who I am as a person, like And then she's just like, but now it's time to focus on you. You do you, like, love yourself, like, treat yourself to something, you grow in yourself. You get closer to God, get deeper with him, and pretty much do what you got to do to first heal you, and that's what I did, and I did what I think helped me and what I wanted to do, that I knew that it was just in my heart to do. So those are the things what I did. And in those moments, and I did like it. It just, I think it led him to be like, I mean, I don't know, like I don't know like how he took it the way I did it.
Well, I can kind of talk into that right now.
Okay, but because I was focusing on myself, like I wasn't always thinking like always about him, I guess, in a way, and draining myself about it. I think that was a thing. Like I would drain myself so much about it, so it would just make me feel drained at the end of the day, or feel like I didn't accomplish anything.
That's how I was in my relationship. Yeah.
So, but because focusing on myself and just, healing with God and just going deeper with him, and just praying and just, being able to be focused on the kids too, and just being there for them. And
well, I think that's why what he says is so good. It is a healthy relationship is truly built by two healthy individuals. It's never the biggest error that has, been accepted is like that. We are two better halves, right? That's always the saying, right? Like, a marriage is two better halves, you know what I mean? Or there's my better half. And no, it's not. It's two whole people that come together and become one. That's marriage. Like that's God's concept is two people come together and you become one. The problem is that sometimes like we don't even know it, but that we're holding on to a lot of things that are keeping us from becoming one, and I think that was like the biggest friction with us is because, she was trying to hold it down for both of us. She was, being that graceful, tenderhearted person for both of us. But when one person, like in my situation, was so broken and dealing with all these different things inside, it's going to be impossible for someone to carry you. And that's where, like what he says, like you do become a burden instead of a blessing. Yeah. A burden is like, something that it's going to be very difficult to carry, and you could carry it for a long time. You could carry it for years, but at the end of the day, like you're just carrying that with you. It's up to me as an individual, and it's up to us as individuals to desire to want to fix that brokenness. Yeah. You know what I mean? We have to become aware that there is something broken inside of me. There is something that's hindering my relationship. I can't depend that like, oh, she's my better half. Because there's people, dude, like there's girls out there that literally like will blame their spouse for the way they are. And that's wrong. Like you are the way you are because you choose to be the way you are. Like I couldn't blame, like that would have been very like selfish and wrong of me to like be like, well, I am this way because of you. You know what I mean? And even though there are times where I like would want to do that, but it's like, no, at the end of the day, I am the way that I am because of my choices, because of my upbringing, because of my childhood, whether it was directly my fault or not my fault. But at the end of the day, I had to become aware of what was hindering me, what is breaking me, what is keeping me from, and kind of going back to what she was saying, like, I don't know what happened. Well, because the thing is that, like once you begin to see, like, it's kind of weird. It's kind of funny. Like I started to see like, well, yeah, like it's not her fault. Like she has nothing to do with how I am, with why I do what I do, with why I feel with what I feel, because I began to see like God's grace in her life. I began to see what God was doing in her life. I began to see that, she was still very attentive, still very kind, still very tenderhearted to me. Like, like she wasn't like neglecting me or anything, but the focus was completely different. Her focus wasn't like, what can I do to fix him? What can I do? Like, no, like, because there's no one that's going to be able to fix me except for me and God.
Was that a shift?
That was the shift,
that she made, like being more kind and tender and
No, because she always was. She always
Girl,
was.
I was.
Yeah.
She's like,
No,
I've been that
the
girl.
shift was.
That girl.
Yeah.
You just took it for granted in those moments.
The shift was like when I started to see like what she was saying, when it was like, yeah, her focus was serving God. Her focus was doing the things that, but at the same time, never neglecting being a wife, never neglecting being a good mom. When I would have my episodes and I would have my moments where I'm like frustrated or angry or something like that, she wouldn't, focus on trying to fix me. She would just, like, okay, like that's what you want to feel. That's what you want to go through. So that's when it started to the shift really started to happen, when I started to really see that, man, you know what? She's not the problem. I'm the problem. I need to get it together. I need to fix. If not, this is going to be me. This is going to be my Saturdays and my Sundays, is me being mad, me being frustrated, and then her, getting the kids and saying, let's go. Daddy's mad. Daddy's frustrated. Let's go to the park, kids. And now I'm not only missing out on my marriage, but now I'm missing out on my kids.
That's a good observation.
Yeah, and it sucks. You're in your 30s and you start to realize, man, that this is your life.
Yeah.
This is your life. Like, whether you think it's picture perfect or not, at the end of the day, it's still your life. And the only one that's going to take responsibility for your life is yourself. Because even God shows us, even God teaches us that he's not going to force you. Like, God is a gentleman and he's not going to force you. Yeah, we can create our own storms and we can create our own problems, and God is right there and he's waiting and he's trying to get our attention, but he's not going to force you. And I think that when she took on that characteristic of okay, George, I'm not going to force you. You want to.
Yeah. Something that I didn't force him, when I think I was trying to really encourage, wasn't forcing, but really trying to encourage him, was to go back to church, to go to church with me. Yeah. But I was just like, okay. So one thing that I want, it was in my heart, to do, was I was already going to church. Okay, he didn't go. Okay. But start putting the mindset okay, if he doesn't want to go, he doesn't want to go. Yeah. In his time, God will change his mind. It will happen. That was my mindset. And it's but I'm still going. I'm still going. My kids are still going. We are going. Yeah. On Sundays, we are going to church. Yeah. The days that we had service, we are going to church. And then I also started getting involved more. I got involved again, in serving at church. I've always loved serving. That is a big thing about me that I've always loved to do. I love serving people, in whatever way that I can, whether if it's small or big, it doesn't matter. That's just always been in my heart, is serving and helping people. So I was like, okay, God put it back in my heart to go serve again. So I started serving in the coffee shop again, and by doing that, it just are you going to go to church today? I'm going to say, okay. Well, I'm getting ready. I didn't getting on him. I didn't get, because he would get mad at my expressions before. And I would get frustrated with him, because I'm just are you serious, dude? You're not even trying.
And a broken person. And that's where I want people, whoever's listening to this, to understand that, that a broken person, it really isn't your fault. When the broken person acts the way that they act, it really isn't the other person's fault. And I want whoever's listening to this to understand, if you're the wife, or if you're the husband, or if you're the boyfriend or the girlfriend, or it's a friendship, and you're the one that's trying to reach out, and you're the one that's trying to, be a blessing, and you're the one that's trying to keep the relationship alive. I want you to understand, it's not you. It really isn't you. And you can be led to believe that it is you, but it really isn't. A person that's broken they're just broken. And until they realize how broken they really are, and how much is healing they need, whatever in my situation was man, I needed healing. I needed to give up certain things. I needed to give up, certain resentments. I needed to give up guilt. There's a lot of emotions that I was putting in the back burner that I was not letting go of. And by seeing her do that, it was a game changer. It really was, because it was now I wasn't wrestling with my wife. Now I'm wrestling with God. Yeah. And when you leave that relationship, that friendship, to wrestle on their own with God, God's going to win. Yeah. God's going to win. Even Jacob, there's the story in the Bible, Jacob, he wrestled with God. And at the end of the day, he didn't win. God won, but through that, Jacob was able to learn a valuable lesson. And then even Jacob was he understood who he was wrestling with. He's man, I'm not going to let go until you bless me. And so sometimes we have to allow people to struggle.
Yeah.
You know, like we have to allow people to go through their struggles. We can't, especially in marriages and as couples, we want to fight the other person's battle and we can't. It's not our job. It's never our job to change people, to fix people, to, you know, there's a way we can, and I believe my wife, you know, again, there's not the only example, there's other examples out there, but in our life, she was that example of, okay, George, like, I'm still going to love you. I'm still going to care for you. I'm still going to be tenderhearted with you. I'm still going to take care of your needs, whatever it is. But this fight is between you and God.
Yeah.
And you gotta fight that.
That's awesome.
And because if it's a fight between me and her, yeah, you know what? I might have better words to say than her. You know, I might be better at arguing. You know, maybe in another life I could have been an attorney.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I could be.
He's a talker.
I'm a good. I'm a good talker. I could talk good.
But you know what? I got God on my back, and he can't win me.
No, exactly. It's true, and that's what I'm saying. Like that's like you leave someone, a human to human. Yeah, you can. And that was Jacob. Like if you read the story of Jacob, Jacob was a manipulator. He was a conniver. He was a liar. You know, he cheated himself into the birthright, you know what I mean, with his brother Esau. I mean, he was good at but when he finally came to the point where it was just him and the angel of the Lord and him and God, and they wrestled. Did he win? Of course not. You know what I mean? And sometimes like we have to just go through life and we have to allow those that we love, as much as it hurts, we have to allow them to wrestle with whatever it is that they need to wrestle. And believe me, like God will never lose.
Yeah. And just pray for them. I think that was the biggest thing too. Like you got to pray for them in that season though. For sure. You got to pray for them. You got to fast for them. You got to, you know, bring people, like, you know, I would let my mentors know, like, you know, okay, like please keep George in prayer, you know. If people ask me about him,
she would tattletale on me.
I would tattletale on him. Like, yeah, I'm gonna tattletale on you, bro. You're hurting me.
It's funny because like I would know, like when she's like she tattletaled on me because I would get a call. I would get the call. I remember like Pastor Armando would call me and.
That's so funny.
And then, but I love the way that he would like even him like he wouldn't. Yo, what are you doing? You know, like, you know, I heard this, like, what's going on? No, like it was almost like he would allow me.
So what's up, George?
to bring it up, you know.
What's going on?
So, but yeah, it's you know, in relationships, you know what I mean? Like I again, like I'll even go as far as I know that people use this term and I understand why the term is used, you know, when your couple is like, you know, when you label them as your best friend, you know what I mean? I understand why people do that. And in a certain way, like my wife is a great friend to me, you know what I mean? But when it comes to certain things, like being a best friend is also very burdensome. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like being a best friend is I think we don't understand the full context of a best friend sometimes. And it's a title that we have to really think like, is this a title that should be given to my spouse?
Yeah. I don't know. I think I refer to my ex as my best friend. Yeah. I could still like feel like I have those conversations I always had these conversations with him. Like he's my best friend. Even the times that we saw each other after we weren't together, that's my homie. But I don't know. I feel like I don't feel anything wrong with like referring your partner as a best friend. Yeah. What is it that makes it that you're trying to say?
I think more, to be honest, I think he will allow it, mm-hmm. or I think he'll more accept it when he feels when you're finally at a better, healthier place.
Right.
Because the when you still got trauma and you're like, because with the best friend, you're going to vent. Yeah. You're going to share what you want to share. Yeah. You know, you're going to confide in that person that whatever they're feeling, they're going to validate it or at least hear you out, whatever it is. Right. But when you're not fully healed, or you still got things lingering inside of you and you really want to share that, you know, some, even till this day, like we struggle with that sometimes, you know, he struggles with that, you know, or even I struggle with that. I don't tell him everything that I feel because I know that if I tell him certain things how I feel, he takes it and he flips it on himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
And so that's what I'm saying. Like that, the burdensome of it. Like not so much that like, cause I could, like, hey, who's your best? Yeah. You know what, Jeanette? Yeah. She really is like my only friend, my best friend. But when it comes to like the context of being a best friend, that sometimes it can be more of a burden.
Yeah. Okay. I see that now.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Because with my relationship, I feel I've just experienced so much like within last year, like 2023. And I just word vomit. I would tell him everything. And, you know, you guys know he's pretty busy with his own life right now. So looking back, it's like he was juggling his own life. And I was being a burden. I was venting to him. I was always struggling with something. So now looking back, I could see it. Like, I think during those times, he's open to hearing me. But it could have been like, hey, I talked to my dad or someone else about it. Like I put the burden more on someone else rather than just dropping it on him, but just kind of going to him and be like, hey, this is like an update. But
because if you really think about it, like even like in a girl relationship or a guy relationship, it's like kind of like I have a few people that I can talk to now where after that conversation is done, whether they offered me a piece of advice or not, like we both walk away, you know, like, and that's kind of the cool thing about a best friendship, you know, like having a friend, someone you can confide in, is that at the end of the day, like you kind of take those, you each go your own separate ways, and you kind of like just, you know, you can kind of forget about that. Doesn't mean that one or the other isn't going to be worried for one another, you know, especially if it's something serious. But at the end of the day, it's just kind of a way of like, man, you know what, this is a friendship that I have that I'm able to confide in. I was able to open up, and just simply opening up maybe just made me feel better, you know? But a lot of times in a relationship, like, you know, that's one thing that we've learned and we're still learning, you know, almost 10 years, is that it's like, yeah, you know what? We're not meant to fix one another, you know? And so it's very hard sometimes. And she knows, like, when she brings an idea sometimes to me, I don't always take it like, okay, I just need to listen to this. I can tend to take it as a man. I can tend to take it like, how can I fix this? Yeah. And that's always a bad approach. And she's told me, she's like, we don't need to do anything. We don't need to plan anything. Like, I just want to share with you. Yeah.
That's what happened with my ex. He was sharing with me like schools that he wanted to go to. And I was a recruiter, ROTC recruiter for a lot of the schools in the area, probably like 5 or 6 schools. Okay. And I was kind of like giving him my insight, like as a recruiter, like what was I looking for in a student? And he wasn't, it wasn't until after the conversation when he told me that he wasn't looking for my help. He already talked to people that was within his field that he's studying for. Yeah. He had already had a plan. He had a mindset. He had an idea. He didn't want me to fix it. He didn't want me to find a solution for him. He just wanted to share it with me. Gotcha. Right. And it's like sometimes some people just want to share it. They don't really want you to like fix it or find a solution.
Yeah. Like I'm like that. Like I just want to share things because it's like it's either something exciting or it's like, oh, cool. Like that would actually be a great idea to do, you know? And I think, and that's what I'm saying, like it has to do a lot with someone's health though, like their mental health, their heart,
the ability to process what they're listening to. Exactly. Like in a positive light. Exactly. And for a long time, I admit, like, and I still admit, like, it's still something I'm working on, like being able to hear something. And even if it is something that needs work or something that's going to take time to do or something, like to be okay with like,
I'm going to share this. It's kind of honest. I don't think I've told you personally, but I'm going to share it on the episode. Transparency here. You know, it's funny because like, so when me and my husband are talking, sometimes I'll tell him like, hey, so what are you dreaming about? Like, what do you dream? Like, you know, what's a dream of yours, you know? And and then he'll share with me. I'm like, tell me, like, just anything. It doesn't necessarily mean like you gotta like something we gotta do right now. But I just want to know, what do you dream about? Like, what do you see yourself doing? You know, like with the podcast or whatever it is, you know. And then he'll share, you know, and I'll let him share, and I'll be like, okay, cool. But you know, it's funny, and this is where I know my husband is not there yet. He doesn't ask me the same thing. Oh, and it's not to put him down, but it's just, I know that because as a visionary person, a creative person, you know, sorry, but I would sometimes like to be asked that.
Yeah.
I want to share what the ideas that I have.
Yeah.
But I know, like, and that's where the best friend, like, concept thing where he's like, sometimes me and him, maybe right now we're not in that place. You know, to say like, yeah, we're best friends. We're best friends in the way, like, we spend our time with each other. We spend a lot of time with each other.
Yeah.
We go have fun together.
We're great partners.
Yeah. We're great partners.
We're business partners together.
Yeah, you know.
We're parenting together.
You know, we have fun together. We try to have our dates, like all of that, like that best friend, yes. But when it comes down to like right now, like those type of conversations, maybe maybe those hard conversations.
Yeah.
I know with that, like he's still working on that.
Yeah.
You know, I've allowed him to have that space, and I know for him, like he's working on that part.
Yeah.
You know.
Ooh, 2:41.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go.
Okay. Yeah, no, yeah. That was good. That was a good topic. You know, and that's a good point. That's a really good point, you know, and it's something that we definitely, and that's why it's I love this point so much. You know, this point that he brought up is it's two people. It really is, you know, it's two people. And I think it releases us, you know, again, it gives us permission to enter into a relationship with that understanding. Entering a relationship with that understanding is so crucial because then you are going to look for someone that is wholesome, you know, someone that is not so much has it together. I think we confuse, you know, being wholesome with having it together. It's not about having it together. I believe it's about having the ability to work on yourself, having the ability to have the confidence in yourself, to love God, to love people. You're in a healthy place, you know, so being wholesome in that way, you know, and finding that in someone else is going to be very key. But then also, if you're already in a relationship, you know, and sometimes we can feel like, why is my partner this way? Or why is this? Or why aren't we blending together the way that we should? Well, we got to understand this. We got to understand that we are two individual people, you know, and the sooner we enter it. So if you're out there dating, if you're out there engaged even, you know what I mean? Like, that's why go to therapy, get counseling, get, you know, premarital counseling. Like, if you're going into marriage, get premarital counseling, because there's nothing more, you know, we invest in so much, you know, especially those that are going to get married. We invest in the engagement ring. We invest in the proposals. We invest in the photography. We invest in the wedding venue. We invest in all these different things. And what really breaks my heart sometimes is that the last thing that people want to invest in is like, you know, 3-4 classes of premarital counseling that could probably be a game changer for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
But they'd rather invest in all these other things and because they don't understand this. They don't understand that. They think that, oh, they met their better half. Like, dude, you're in for a surprise if you think you met your better half. Like,
because you're always going to find the flaws.
Always.
We're not perfect people. You're going to find the flaw in the other person. Like, no matter what, like, if you think your person, whether if you're engaged or dating, they're the best person ever, they've done everything right.
Right.
But once you're married, there comes a test.
Well,
the test will come, you know, and how are you going to react in that test, you know, in those hard times together, you know? So, yes, you know, get counseling, talk to someone, find mentors, a married couple that can mentor you and really like, talk real with y'all. You know, let people talk real, you know, to you. Because too, if you don't, because the thing is, you can go to counseling, you can talk to people. But if you don't allow people to be real with you and say what needs to be said, and you admitting things, and you really taking responsibility for your actions, then I'm sorry, if you do not do that, you won't, you're gonna struggle. Yeah. You're gonna struggle. There's gonna always be a struggle within yourself.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's not even to be mean. It's not even to knock. Like, it's just real. It's real life, you know? And so the sooner we get these tools under our belt, the better.
Yeah. I think this is real that I've seen. I'm probably not wording it right, but like, I think when someone's correcting you and pointing out something in you that it's harmful towards you, it's out of love. It's not to like bash you. It's not to criticize you. It's them pointing out on something that probably needs a little bit of work that can improve you to make you a better person. So when we are receiving criticism and someone's pointing out a flaw in us, it should be like a humbling moment for us to accept it and then just be like, hey, this person's doing it out of love so that I can be a better person.
And believe me, it's going to be hard at that moment. Like, me, when I receive criticism, it gets hard. It gets hard. Like, what? Yeah. Like, but at the end of the day, it's like, okay, that's what you see. That's how you feel. That's what I did.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, just like, no one's going to win if you stay defensive. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? No one's going to win.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like, okay. Like, that's how I am with my husband. Like, okay. That's what I did. Okay. I admit it. I did do that. Yeah. You know? I'm sorry for it.
100%.
You know?
Nah, just kidding.
He's like, yes.
that's real.
But you did this.
Well, guys, that's it for our episode. Man, there's so many other clips that we would love to get in, but I think that was really good for today. So, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget to follow us, like this page, subscribe, share it with someone that just needs to hear this, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. We release content every day. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. This was Offbeat Podcast. Let's go. Bye.